She wasn't supposed to save him. She wasn't even supposed to be alive. In a territory ruled by Fang and Fury, one Omega broke the cardinal rule. She crossed into Alpha Land. What she found there would change everything. A blind child, seconds from death, and the most dangerous wolf in the forest coming for her throat. But Liora Vance didn't run. She made a choice that should have killed her. Instead, it put her at the center of a power struggle that could burn the entire pack to ash. Stay until the end to see how one invisible girl dismantled an empire. Drop a comment with your city. Let's see where this story reaches tonight. The forest had rules, simple ones, the kind that kept you breathing. Stay in the lowlands. Never hunt past the ridge. And if you hear howling after dark, you run. You don't ask questions. You don't look back. You just run. Liora Vance had followed those rules for 6 years. 6 years of scavenging, sleeping in hollow trees, and making herself so small the world forgot she existed. That was how Omegas survived out here. You didn't stand out. You didn't make noise. You certainly didn't cross into territory that wasn't yours. But today, the rabbit she'd been tracking had other plans. It bolted uphill, whitetail flashing through the underbrush, and Leora's stomach, empty for 2 days, made the decision before her brain could. She followed. 1 ridge became 2. 2 became 3. By the time she realized how far she'd gone, the sun was already sinking, painting the sky in shades of blood and copper. She crouched low, breathing hard, and that's when she smelled it. Alpha Land. The scent hit her like a fist, sharp, territorial, unmistakable. It clung to the trees, soaked into the soil, a warning written in pheromones that screamed, "Turn back or die." Leora's pulse kicked up. She should leave. Right now. Forget the rabbit. Forget her hunger. Just... A sound cut through the stillness. Crying. Soft. Young. Terrified. Her head snapped toward it, every instinct screaming at her to go the other way. This wasn't her problem. Whatever was happening up there, it had nothing to do with her. She was nobody. She had no pack, no protection, no right to be here in the first place. But the crying didn't stop. And despite everything, despite 6 years of keeping her head down and her mouth shut, Liora found herself moving toward it. The trees thinned as she climbed higher, and then she saw him. A boy. Maybe 7 years old, standing at the edge of a cliff that dropped into nothing. His clothes were too fine for the forest, dark fabric embroidered with silver thread that caught the dying light. His hands were stretched out in front of him, fingers trembling as they grasped at empty air. He was blind. Leora's breath caught. He took a step forward. She didn't think, didn't plan, didn't calculate the risk or weigh the consequences. She just moved. Her body slammed into his, arms wrapping around his small frame as momentum carried them both backward. They hit the ground hard, rolling through dirt and pine needles until a tree trunk stopped them cold. For a moment, there was only the sound of their breathing. Then the boy twisted in her arms, panicked, and screamed, "Let go! Let go!" Liora released him immediately, scrambling back. "It's okay, you're okay. You were about to... Who are you?" His voice cracked, hands still reaching blindly. "Where's my father? Where—" The growl came from behind her. Low, guttural, the kind of sound that turned your blood to ice. Liora froze. She didn't need to turn around to know what was there. She could feel it. The weight of a predator's gaze, the heat of barely controlled rage radiating like a furnace at her back. "Step away from my son!" The voice wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. It carried the kind of authority that made the air itself feel heavier. Liora raised her hands slowly, moving to her feet. I said step. Away. She did. 3 careful paces backward, eyes on the ground, shoulders hunched in the universal language of, "I'm not a threat. Please don't kill me." That's when she finally looked up. The man standing between her and the boy was built like violence. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just past his collar and eyes the color of winter storms. He wore authority like a second skin, not in the way he stood or the clothes he wore, but in something deeper. Something that said he'd never had to ask for power because it had always been his. Ronan Kale, alpha of the Shadow Ridge pack. Liora had never seen him before, but she'd heard the stories. Everyone had. The wolf who took control at 19 after his father's murder, who unified 3 rival packs through strategy and sheer brutality. who ruled the northern territories with an iron fist and didn't tolerate weakness, trespassing, or defiance. And she was standing in his land, uninvited, with her scent all over his son. He was going to fall. The words came out steadier than she expected. The cliff. He couldn't see it. Ronan's eyes didn't leave hers. Are you claiming credit for saving him or confessing to luring him here? What? No, because from where I'm standing, I see an Omega with no pack markings, no territory rights, and no business being within 10 miles of this ridge. He took a step forward. So you're going to tell me exactly what you're doing here. And if I don't like the answer, you won't make it back down that mountain. The boy, his son, reached toward him. Father, she helped me. I heard the river and thought I could find the way, but I got turned around and... Quiet, Kieran. Not harsh, just firm. The kind of command that expected obedience. The boy, Kieran, fell silent. Liora's mind raced. She could run. Probably wouldn't make it far, but maybe. I was hunting the truth, mostly. A rabbit. It came up here. I followed. Then I heard him crying, and she gestured helplessly at the cliff edge. You expect me to believe you risked your life out of altruism? I expect you to believe I'm not stupid enough to kidnap an alpha's son and then stick around to get caught. The words were out before she could stop them. Silence. Ronan's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or reassessment. You have a mouth on you for someone with no leverage. I have nothing, Liora shot back, exhaustion and fear making her reckless. No pack, no home, no leverage, like you said. But I didn't hurt your son. I saved him. So if you're going to kill me for trespassing, at least do it for the right reason. Another silence. Longer, this time. Then Ronan turned to his son. Kieran, what happened? The boy's face crumpled. I wanted to prove I could navigate alone. Like you said, I needed to learn. But I got lost, and there were sounds I didn't recognize, and when I tried to find the river, His voice broke. I'm sorry. Something in Ronan's posture softened. Not much, just enough to be noticeable. He crouched down, one hand on Kieran's shoulder. We'll talk about this later. Right now, I need you to answer me honestly. Did this woman harm you in any way? No. Immediate. Certain. She knocked me down, but only because I was about to walk off the edge. She saved me, Father. She really did. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, turning back to Liora with an expression that was somehow worse than anger, calculation. You're unbound, he said. Not a question. Liora nodded. How long? 6 years. His eyebrows rose slightly. That's unusual. I'm good at being invisible. Clearly not good enough. He studied her like she was a puzzle he hadn't decided whether to solve or destroy. You saved my son's life. That carries weight. But you also violated territorial law. That carries consequences. Her stomach dropped. So what are you going to do? I'm going to give you a choice. That was not what she expected. Ronan gestured toward the darkening forest below. Option 1. You leave. Right now. I'll give you until dawn to cross back into neutral territory, and we'll pretend this never happened. It was more mercy than she had any right to expect. She should take it, thank him, and run. But something in his tone told her there was a catch. And option 2? His smile was sharp as broken glass. You come with me. Not as a prisoner, as a member of Shadow Ridge Pack. Bound, protected, claimed. The word hit her like a physical blow. Claimed. In pack law, claiming meant ownership. It meant your life wasn't yours anymore. It belonged to the Alpha, to the pack, to a hierarchy that put Omegas at the bottom and kept them there. It meant safety, yes, but at a cost most wolves would never understand. Why? The question came out hoarse. Why would you want that? Because my son is alive because of you. That's a debt I don't take lightly. Ronan's eyes were unreadable. And because Shadow Ridge needs people who act instead of waiting for permission. You proved you're capable of that. I'm not a fighter. I have plenty of fighters. What I need are wolves who can think under pressure, who don't panic when the rules don't cover the situation. He tilted his head slightly. You could have run when you heard Kieran crying. Most would have. You didn't. That tells me something. Leora's hands were shaking. She curled them into fists, nails digging into her palms. This was insane. Going with him meant walking into a world she'd spent 6 years avoiding. It meant hierarchy, dominance battles, alpha posturing, and 1,000 unspoken rules designed to keep Omegas in their place. It meant giving up the one thing she'd managed to keep, her freedom. But staying out here alone? That meant hunger, cold, the constant threat of rogues, or worse. It meant another 6 years of barely surviving, of being so invisible she might as well not exist. And maybe, just maybe, she was tired of being invisible. If I say yes, she said slowly, what exactly does claimed mean? It means you're under my protection. No one in Shadow Ridge can challenge you, harm you, or force you into anything without going through me first. He paused. It also means you follow pack law. You contribute. You train. And if I give you an order, you follow it. And if I refuse an order, then we have a problem. Blunt? Honest? She appreciated that at least. How long do I have to decide? Until we reach the bottom of this ridge. After that, the offer expires. Of course it did. Ronan turned, scooping Kieran up with an ease that spoke of long practice. The boy wrapped his arms around his father's neck, burying his face in his shoulder. Walk with us, Ronan said over his shoulder. Or don't. Your choice. And just like that, he started down the slope. Liora stood there, frozen, her mind screaming contradictions. Run, stay, go, hide. Then Kieran's voice drifted back through the trees. Is she coming, Father? I don't know, son. I hope she does. I didn't get to say thank you. Something cracked in Leora's chest. She took a breath, then another. And then, against every survival instinct she'd honed over 6 brutal years, she followed them down the mountain. The Shadow Ridge settlement wasn't what she expected. She'd pictured something crude, temporary, a collection of dens and fire pits scattered through the trees. Instead, she found a fortress. The main structure was built into the mountainside itself, stone and timber rising 3 stories high with watchtowers at each corner. Smaller buildings surrounded it, barracks, storage houses, what looked like a communal hall. Wolves moved between them with purpose, carrying supplies, sharpening weapons, talking in clusters that fell silent as Ronan passed, and every single one of them stared at Liora. She kept her eyes down, following in Ronan's wake as he carried Kieran through the main gates. Whispers followed her like smoke. Who is that? Where'd she come from? Is she a captive? Smells like Omega. Quiet. Ronan didn't raise his voice, but the effect was immediate. Silence rippled outward like a stone dropped in still water. He stopped in front of the largest building, setting Kieran down gently. Go inside. Find Mara. Tell her you're all right. But now, Kieran? The boy hesitated, then nodded and disappeared through the heavy wooden doors. Ronan turned to face the gathered pack, and Liora realized with creeping dread that this wasn't just a homecoming. This was a presentation. This is Liora Vance, Ronan announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard. As of tonight, she's under my protection. Shadow Ridge law applies to her. Anyone who challenges that challenges me. More whispers. Sharper this time. A man stepped forward from the crowd, older, grizzled, with scars crossing his face like a roadmap of violence. You brought an outsider into the pack without consulting the council? I brought someone who saved my son's life, Marcus. Ronan's tone could have frozen fire. Unless you have an issue with that. Marcus's jaw worked. We have protocols, vetting processes. We don't just claim strays because they did one good deed. She's not a stray. She's bound to me. That makes her pack. Ronan's eyes swept the crowd. Unless someone wants to dispute my right to make that call? No one moved. Good. He turned back to Liora, and for just a second, something almost like amusement flickered across his face. Welcome to Shadow Ridge. Try not to die in the first week. Then he walked away, leaving her standing alone in a courtyard full of wolves who looked at her like she was either prey or a problem. Possibly both. A woman approached, tall, lean, with silver threading through her dark hair. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes were sharp as she took Leora's measure. I'm Mara, second in command. I handle logistics, training schedules, and apparently unexpected additions to the pack. She gestured toward a smaller building on the eastern side. Come on, you look like you're about to collapse, and Ronan hates it when people pass out in the courtyard. Bad for morale. Liora followed, numb. The room Mara led her to was small but clean. A bed, a chest, a window that overlooked the forest. Compared to 6 years of sleeping on the ground, it felt like luxury. There's a wash basin in the corner, clothes in the chest, probably too big, but they'll do until we get you sorted. Mara paused at the door. Breakfast is at dawn. Don't be late. And for what it's worth? Liora looked up. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've seen in years. Haven't decided which yet. Mara's smile was thin. But you saved Kieran. That counts for something. Just watch your back. Not everyone here is happy about this. I noticed. Good. Means you're paying attention. The door closed with a soft click, and Liora was alone. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the bed, at the walls, at the window that showed a world she'd just agreed to be part of. Then, slowly, her legs gave out. She sank to the floor, back against the wall, and let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in her chest for hours. What had she done? She'd walked into the Alpha's den, accepted a claim from the most dangerous wolf in the territory, put herself directly in the center of a pack structure she'd spent years avoiding, and tomorrow she'd have to figure out how to survive it. But tonight, just for tonight, she had a roof over her head, a door that locked, and for the first time in 6 years she didn't have to sleep with one eye open. Liora pulled herself onto the bed, still fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. Outside, wolves howled at the rising moon, and somewhere in the fortress, an Alpha she didn't trust and couldn't read was deciding what to do with the Omega who'd just become his responsibility. She should be terrified. She was. But underneath the fear, buried deep where she barely wanted to acknowledge it, was something else. Something that felt almost like hope. Dawn came too early and too loud. Liora woke to the sound of boots on stone, voices shouting orders, and the clang of metal on metal that meant training had already started. She'd barely slept. Every creak of the building, every distant howl had jerked her awake, heart pounding, sure someone was coming for her. No one had. She dragged herself out of bed, splashed water on her face, and pulled on the clothes Mara had left. The pants were too long, the shirt hung loose, but they were clean and they fit well enough. Better than anything she'd worn in years. The courtyard was chaos when she stepped outside. Wolves sparred in pairs, claws flashing, bodies slamming into dirt with impacts that made her wince. Others ran drills, sprinting between markers, scaling walls, shifting mid-leap with a fluidity that spoke of lifelong practice. Everyone moved with purpose, with belonging, like they were parts of a machine that had been running long before she arrived. Liora stood at the edge of it all, invisible again. Except she wasn't. Not here. Eyes tracked her as she crossed toward what she assumed was the dining hall. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. A few wolves sneered outright, not even bothering to hide it. Look who decided to show up! Probably slept past dawn. Omegas always do. Can't believe Ronan actually claimed her. Liora kept walking, jaw tight, refusing to react. The dining hall was massive. Long tables carved from dark wood, a fire pit in the center that filled the space with smoke and the smell of cooking meat. Wolves filled every bench, eating, arguing, laughing in that rough way pack members did when they'd bled together. She spotted Mara near the front and made her way over, weaving between tables while trying not to draw attention. It didn't work. Someone stuck a foot out. Liora caught herself before she fell, stumbling forward into the table with enough force to rattle dishes. Laughter erupted around her, sharp, cruel, the kind meant to remind her exactly where she stood in the hierarchy. Careful, the wolf who'd tripped her said, grinning. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself on your first day. Liora straightened, face burning, and locked eyes with him. He was young, maybe 20, built like he spent all day in the training yard and wanted everyone to know it. His friends flanked him, all wearing the same expression, amusement mixed with contempt. Problem? She asked quietly. His grin widened. No problem, just making sure you know how things work around here. Omegas eat last, after the real wolves are done. That's not pack law. It's my law. He leaned back, arms crossed. And unless you want to challenge me for it, I suggest you wait your turn." The hall had gone quiet, everyone watching now, waiting to see what she'd do. Liora felt her pulse kick up, adrenaline flooding her system. She could walk away, should walk away. This wasn't a fight worth having on her first morning. "Move." The voice cut through the tension like a blade. Ronan stood in the doorway, still wearing training leathers, sweat darkening his collar. He looked at the young wolf who'd spoken with an expression that could have stripped paint. "She eats when she wants, where she wants. And if I hear you or anyone else giving her orders again, we'll have a very different conversation. Clear?" The wolf's face went pale. "Yes, Alpha." "Good." Ronan's gaze swept the room. "Anyone else need clarification on that point?" Silence. He jerked his chin toward Mara's table. "Sit." It wasn't a suggestion. Liora moved before her brain caught up, sliding onto the bench across from Mara, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Ronan didn't join them. He grabbed food and headed back out, presumably to the training yard, leaving her alone in a room full of wolves who now had one more reason to hate her. Mara pushed a plate toward her. Bread, meat, something that might have been eggs. "Eat fast. Training starts in 10 minutes. "Training? You're packed now. That means you train." Mara's smile was sharp. "Hope you're a quick learner." Dung. The training yard was worse than the dining hall. Mara led her to a group of younger wolves, late teens, early 20s, all of them watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The same wolf who'd tripped her earlier was there, along with his friends. Perfect. "This is Liora," Mara announced. "She's starting today. I expect you all to bring her up to speed on basics." A girl with copper-colored hair laughed. "Basics? How basic are we talking?" "Shifting. Combat, tracking, the usual." "She doesn't look like she can fight." "Then teach her." Mara's tone left no room for argument. "You have 2 hours. Make them count." She walked off, leaving Liora standing in front of a group that looked at her like she was a burden they didn't want. The copper-haired girl stepped forward, circling Liora like she was evaluating livestock. "Can you shift?" "Yes." "Show me." Liora hesitated. Shifting in front of strangers felt vulnerable in a way she couldn't explain, but refusing would make this worse. She closed her eyes, reaching for the wolf inside her. The change came slower than it should have. 6 years of avoiding her wolf form, of staying small and human, had made the transformation awkward. Her bones cracked, fur rippled across her skin, and when it was done, she stood on 4 legs, panting. She was smaller than the others, leaner. Her coat was pale gray, almost silver in the morning light. The copper-haired girl shifted beside her, fluid, effortless, her wolf form muscular and confident. She circled Liora once, then bumped her hard with her shoulder. Liora stumbled. The girl shifted back, already human again. "You're weak, slow, and your form is sloppy." Liora shifted back, biting down on the anger rising in her chest. "I haven't practiced in a while." "Obviously." The girl crossed her arms. "I'm Sarah. That's Jax." She pointed to the wolf who'd tripped her. "And that's Cade, Reese, and Naya. We've been training together since we were kids. You're starting 6 years behind. So help me catch up." "Why should we?" Jax asked, stepping forward. "You didn't earn your place here. Ronan handed it to you because you got lucky with Kieran." "I saved his life." "Yeah, well, that doesn't make you one of us." Liora met his eyes, refusing to look away. "Then what does?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. Sarah answered instead. "Proving you can keep up. Proving you won't get someone killed because you're too weak to handle yourself." She gestured toward the sparring ring. "So prove it. Fight me." "I don't want to fight you. I don't care what you want." Sarah's smile was all teeth. "You want to be pack. You fight. That's how it works." Around them, the other trainees were forming a circle, anticipation crackling in the air. This wasn't about training anymore. This was a test, a gauntlet, and Liora had no choice but to walk through it. She stepped into the ring. Sarah didn't wait for her to be ready. She lunged, fast and brutal, slamming into Liora with enough force to knock the air from her lungs. They hit the ground hard, Sarah's weight pinning her, claws flashing toward her throat. Liora twisted, using momentum instead of strength, and rolled them over. She didn't try to match Sarah's power. She couldn't. Instead, she went for leverage, hooking a leg behind Sarah's knee and shoving. Sarah went down, surprised, and Liora scrambled back before she could recover. They circled each other, breathing hard. "Not bad," Sarah admitted, "but you're still going to lose." She came in again, feinting left, then striking right. Liora blocked, barely, her forearm screaming in protest. Another strike. Another. Sarah was relentless, driving her back step by step until Liora's heel hit the edge of the ring. No more room to retreat. Sarah grinned and charged. Liora dropped low, letting Sarah's momentum carry her forward, and swept her legs out from under her. Sarah crashed down face first, and before she could recover, Liora was on her back, one hand fisted in her hair, the other pressed against her spine. "Yield," Liora said quietly. Sarah bucked, trying to throw her off, but Liora held on, using her weight to keep her pinned. "Yield. Fine, I yield." Liora released her immediately, stepping back, hands raised. The circle was silent. Then Jack started clapping, slow, mocking. "Well, look at that. The Omega's got some fight in her after all." Sarah shoved to her feet, face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Lucky shot." "Was it?" Liora was breathing hard, adrenaline still singing through her veins. "Because I can go again if you want?" Sarah's eyes narrowed. For a second, Liora thought she might actually take her up on it. Then Mara's voice cut through the tension. "That's enough. Back to drills. All of you." The group dispersed, grumbling, leaving Liora standing alone in the ring. Mara approached, expression unreadable. "That was stupid. She challenged me. And you should have walked away." "If I'd walked away, they would have eaten me alive." Liora wiped blood from her lip. She hadn't even felt it split. "I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to survive." Mara studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. "Maybe you'll last longer than I thought." The rest of training was brutal. They ran her through drills until her legs shook, made her shift until her bones ached, and sparred with her until she couldn't tell bruises from muscle anymore. By the time Mara called an end to it, Liora could barely stand. But she'd kept up. Barely. And that mattered. She limped back to her room, every part of her screaming for rest, and found someone waiting outside her door. Kieran. The boy sat on the floor, back against the wall, his unseeing eyes fixed somewhere in the middle distance. He turned his head when he heard her footsteps. "Liora?" "Yeah, it's me." Relief washed over his face. "I've been waiting. I wanted to—" He hesitated. "Thank you. For yesterday. I didn't get to say it properly." Liora's chest tightened. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." He stood, small hands reaching until they found the wall, using it to steady himself. "Father says you're packed now, that you're staying. For now." "Good." He smiled, and it was so genuine it hurt to look at. "I was worried you'd leave." "Why?" "Because people don't usually stay. Not after they see what it's really like here." His expression faltered. "Father's trying to make things better, but the pack, they don't all agree with how he does things, and they take it out on people who can't fight back." "Is that what happened to you?" Kieran's jaw tightened. "I'm the Alpha's son. They can't touch me, but they can make sure I know I'm—" He trailed off, searching for the word. "Different?" Liora offered quietly. "Weak." The word came out bitter. "That's what they think. That I'm weak because I can't see. That I'll never be strong enough to lead." Liora sat down against the wall beside him. "You're 7. You're not supposed to be strong enough to lead. I'm supposed to be stronger than this." "Says who?" "Everyone." He slumped, shoulders curling inward. "Father trains me every day, teaches me to fight, to navigate, to listen so I can survive. But it's not enough. It's never enough." Liora was quiet for a moment, thinking about 6 years in the wild, about learning to survive on her own, about the 1,000 ways she'd figured out how to be invisible. "You know what I think?" she said finally. "What?" "I think people who decide you're weak before they even know you are idiots. And I think you don't need to prove anything to them." Kieran turned toward her, surprised. "But," Liora continued, "if you want to prove something to yourself, that's different. That's worth doing." "How?" By figuring out what makes you strong instead of trying to be strong the way everyone else is. She bumped his shoulder gently. You've got good hearing, right? Better than most? He nodded slowly. Then use it. Learn to hear things other people miss. Learn to move quiet. Learn to be 3 steps ahead because you're listening while they're just looking. She paused. Being different isn't the same as being weak. Sometimes it just means you're playing a different game. Kieran was quiet for a long time. Then, softly, will you help me? Learn to fight differently, I mean. Leora's first instinct was to say no. She wasn't a teacher. She barely knew how to fight herself. And getting more involved with the Alpha's son was a complication she didn't need. But looking at him, at this kid who'd been told his whole life he wasn't enough, she couldn't make herself refuse. Yeah, she said. I'll help. His smile could have lit the whole fortress. The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm. Training with Sarah's group in the mornings, where she continued to get her ass kicked but refused to stay down. Afternoons helping in the kitchens or storage because Mara insisted everyone contribute. And evenings with Kieran, teaching him tricks she'd learned in the wild, ways to navigate by sound and scent instead of sight. The pack didn't warm to her. If anything, the hostility grew sharper. Someone put burrs in her bedding, spoiled her food, spread rumors that she was sleeping her way into Ronan's good graces, vicious, ugly lies that followed her like shadows. She ignored it. Mostly. But ignoring it didn't make it stop. 3 weeks in, things came to a head. Liora was crossing the courtyard after training when Jax blocked her path, flanked by 2 others from Sarah's group. Omega, he said, voice dripping contempt. We need to talk. She tried to step around him. He moved with her, staying in her way. I don't have time for this. Make time. He smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it. See, there's a problem. You've been here almost a month and you still don't understand how things work. Enlighten me. You're not one of us. You'll never be one of us. Ronan can claim you all he wants, but that doesn't change what you are. A stray who got lucky. He stepped closer, crowding her space. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to Ronan and tell him you changed your mind, that you want to leave. And if I don't, then we make your life so miserable you'll want to leave. Liora felt her jaw tighten. You're already doing that. Hasn't worked yet. Jax's expression darkened. Then maybe we need to try harder. He reached for her fast, but Liora was faster. She caught his wrist, twisted, and drove her knee into his stomach hard enough to double him over. The other 2 lunged. She didn't stand a chance against 3 of them, not in a real fight, but she didn't need to win. She just needed to make it hurt. She got 1 good hit in, an elbow to someone's jaw that sent teeth flying before they tackled her to the ground. Pain exploded across her ribs as someone kicked her, then again, harder. Enough! The voice cracked like a whip. The beating stopped immediately. Liora rolled onto her side, gasping, and saw Ronan standing at the edge of the courtyard. He wasn't yelling, didn't need to. The fury radiating off him was enough to make the air feel electric. Jax scrambled to his feet. Alpha, we were just... quiet. 1 word. Absolute. Ronan crossed the distance between them in seconds, and Liora watched Jax's confidence evaporate as the Alpha stopped inches from his face. You put your hands on someone under my protection. She started it. I don't care. Ronan's voice was soft, lethal. You know the law. If you have a problem with one of mine, you bring it to me. You don't take it into your own hands, and you definitely don't attack someone 3-on-1 in my courtyard. Alpha, please. Strip. Jax went white. What? Your rank markers, your weapons, everything that marks you as Shadow Ridge. Strip. Now. Horror dawned on Jax's face. You're banishing me? I'm giving you a choice. Ronan's eyes were ice. You can leave, or you can challenge me right here, right now, and we'll settle this the old way. Jax looked at the Alpha, really looked at him, and whatever he saw there made his knees buckle. I'll leave. Good decision. Ronan stepped back. You have until sundown to be gone. If I see you on Shadow Ridge land after that, I'll kill you myself. Jax fled. The other 2 followed, not even bothering to help Liora up. Ronan turned to her, and for a second she thought she saw something like concern flash across his face. Then it was gone. Get up! She did, biting back a groan as her ribs protested. Can you walk? Yes. Then walk my office now. He didn't wait to see if she followed. Ronan's office was on the third floor of the main building, overlooking the entire settlement. It was sparse: desk, chairs, maps covering the walls, weapons mounted above the fireplace. Nothing personal, nothing soft. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Liora sat, wincing. Ronan poured something amber from a bottle and slid it across the desk. Drink. I don't. It's not a request. She drank. Whatever it was burned going down, but the warmth helped. Ronan leaned against the desk, arms crossed, studying her. You're causing problems. I'm getting problems. There's a difference. Is there? He tilted his head. Because from where I'm standing, every time I turn around, you're in the middle of something. Fighting with Sarah, arguing with Marcus in the council meetings. I didn't argue. I asked a question. And now getting jumped in broad daylight. He exhaled slowly. What am I supposed to do with you, Liora? Let me leave. The words were out before she could stop them. Ronan's expression didn't change. Is that what you want? I want to stop being a problem. That wasn't what I asked. Liora looked down at her hands. They were shaking. No, I don't want to leave. Then stop acting like you do. I'm not. You are. He moved closer, crouching so they were eye level. You keep your head down. Don't make friends. Don't ask for help. Act like you're just waiting for permission to disappear. His eyes were too sharp, seeing too much. You want to be Pac? Then be Pac. Stop apologizing for existing. I'm not apologizing. You are. Every time you let them push you around, every time you take their shit without pushing back, every time you act like you don't deserve to be here. He stood, frustration bleeding into his voice. I claimed you, Liora. That means something, but I can't force them to respect you. You have to earn that. By doing what? Fighting everyone who looks at me wrong? By showing them you're not going anywhere. He turned toward the window. The pack respects strength, not just physical strength, strength of will, conviction. The kind of backbone that says, I belong here whether you like it or not. Liora stood, ignoring the pain in her ribs. I saved your son. I've trained every day. I followed every rule. What more do you want from me? I want you to stop surviving and start living. He looked back at her, and something in his expression softened, just a fraction. You've been alone for 6 years. I get that. But you're not alone anymore, so stop acting like you are. The words hit harder than Jax's fists. Because he was right. She'd been so focused on not being a burden, on staying invisible, that she'd forgotten how to be anything else. I don't know how, she admitted quietly. Ronan was silent for a moment, then, start with Kieran. She blinked. What? He trusts you, listens to you. You're good with him. Ronan's jaw tightened, and he needs someone who sees him as more than just the blind alpha's son. You're his father, which is exactly why he needs someone else. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare crack in his composure. I push him because I have to, because if I don't, the pack will eat him alive the second I'm gone. But you? He trailed off. I what? You treat him like he's already strong, like his blindness doesn't define him. Ronan met her eyes. Keep doing that. And maybe, while you're at it, figure out how to do the same for yourself. Before she could respond, the door slammed open. Marcus stood there, blood on his hands, face pale. Alpha, we have a problem. Rogues hit the Western Patrol. They took 2 of ours. Ronan's entire demeanor shifted from frustrated Alpha to tactical commander in a heartbeat. How many? At least 8, maybe more. They're demanding to speak with you. Said if you don't come alone, they'll kill the hostages. Every instinct Liora had screamed trap. And based on Ronan's expression, he knew it too. But he was already moving, grabbing weapons from the wall, strapping them on with practiced efficiency. Gather the 2nd unit. Full gear. I want them ready to move in 5. You're not actually going alone? I'm going to negotiate. They'll be backup if it goes south. He strapped a knife to his thigh. Get everyone ready. Marcus hesitated, then nodded and left. Ronan started toward the door. Leora's mouth moved before her brain caught up. Let me come with you. He stopped, turned. Absolutely not. You need someone who can move quiet, someone they won't see coming. She stepped forward. I spent 6 years surviving in that forest. I know the terrain. I know how to stay invisible, which is exactly why you're staying here. Ronan, no. Final, absolute. You're not trained for this. You'd be a liability. The word stung more than it should have. Then what good am I? The question came out sharper than she intended. You said I need to prove I belong, so let me prove it. Ronan stared at her, jaw working, then quietly. If you get killed, Kieran will never forgive me. If you get killed, he'll never forgive himself for not being able to help. Low blow, but effective. Ronan closed his eyes, exhaled slowly, and when he opened them again, there was resignation there. Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say, when I say it, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Liora nodded. Then move. We leave in 3 minutes. She grabbed weapons she barely knew how to use and followed Ronan down 3 flights of stairs, her ribs screaming protest with every step. The courtyard had transformed into controlled chaos, wolves arming up, checking gear, moving with the kind of precision that came from years of drills. Mara intercepted them at the gate. You're taking her? She's scouting, that's all. That's suicide. Noted. Ronan didn't slow down. Second unit moves in 10, standard flanking formation. If you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, assume it went bad and pull back. Like hell we will. That's an order, Mara. He stopped, met her eyes. If they're setting a trap, I won't have them pick off the whole pack. You pull back, regroup, and protect Kieran. Clear? Mara's jaw worked, but she nodded. Liora followed Ronan through the gates and into the forest, adrenaline drowning out the pain. Behind them, she heard the second unit mobilizing, but Ronan set a brutal pace that quickly put distance between them and backup. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of rust and shadow. Talk to me about the western border, Ronan said, not looking back. What's the terrain like? Liora's mind raced, pulling up 6 years of survival knowledge. Rocky, lots of ravines, dense underbrush near the river, but it thins out closer to the cliffs. Good ambush territory if you know what you're doing. They know what they're doing. His voice was grim. Rogues don't take hostages unless they want something specific. Question is what? They moved in silence after that, Ronan leading with the confidence of someone who'd walked these paths 1,000 times. Liora stayed 3 paces behind, eyes scanning, ears straining for anything out of place. The forest felt wrong, too quiet. Birds should have been settling in for the night, small animals rustling through undergrowth. Instead, there was nothing. Like everything with sense had fled. Ronan must have felt it too because he slowed, one hand moving to the knife at his belt. How far? He asked quietly. Maybe half a mile to the western marker. Liora tested the wind. But they're closer than that. How do you know? Because I can smell blood. Ronan went still. Then, carefully, he scented the air himself. His expression darkened. Fresh? Recent enough. They moved faster, abandoning caution for speed. The smell got stronger, copper and fear and something else, something that made Liora's wolf recoil instinctively. Death. They found the first body at the base of a ravine. Male. Early 20s, throat torn out, eyes still open in shock. One of Ronan's patrol, based on the pack markings. Ronan crouched beside him, 2 fingers pressed to the cooling neck. He's been dead maybe 20 minutes. He scanned the area. Where's the other one? There. Liora pointed to a cluster of trees 50 feet away. Another body, this one female, sprawled face down with claw marks raking her back. Ronan's hands curled into fists. They didn't take hostages. They just wanted us out here. The realization hit Liora like ice water. It's a diversion. Fuck! Ronan was already moving, pulling a radio from his belt. Mara, do you copy? Static. He tried again. Mara, respond. Nothing. They're jamming us. He looked at Liora, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw real fear in his eyes. Kieran. They ran. Leora's ribs felt like they were being stabbed with every breath, but she pushed through it, keeping pace with Ronan as they tore back toward the settlement. Her mind was screaming warnings. This was wrong. All of it. The bodies were too obvious. The timing too perfect. They burst from the tree line and Leora's heart stopped. The fortress was burning. Not the whole thing. Just the eastern wing. The section where Kieran's room was. Ronan didn't hesitate. He shifted mid-stride, clothes tearing as his wolf form exploded forward, massive and dark and fast. Liora shifted too, smaller, leaner, her paws finding purchase on stone as they raced through the gates. Wolves were everywhere, fighting, shouting, trying to coordinate water lines to the fire. But it was chaos, everyone moving in different directions, no central command. Ronan shifted back, already bellowing orders. "Where's Kieran?" A young wolf stumbled forward, face covered in soot. "His room? We tried to get to him, but the smoke—" Ronan didn't wait for the rest. He was moving, taking stairs 3 at a time, and Liora was right behind him because she'd promised Kieran she'd help him, and she'd be damned if she let him burn. The 3rd floor was an inferno. Heat slammed into them like a wall, smoke so thick Liora couldn't see 3 feet ahead. Ronan pressed forward anyway, one arm over his face, following muscle memory to Kieran's door. It was locked from the outside. Liora's blood went cold. "He's trapped." Ronan threw his shoulder against the door. Once, twice. The wood splintered, but held. "Move!" Liora pulled him back, drawing the knife she'd barely known how to use an hour ago. She jammed it into the gap between door and frame, using leverage instead of strength, and the lock gave with a crack. The door swung open, releasing a wave of smoke and heat. Kieran was huddled in the corner, coughing, tears streaming down his face. "Father? I'm here." Ronan crossed the room in 2 strides, scooping him up. "Close your eyes. Hold your breath." They ran. The stairs were worse. Flames licking up the walls now, wood groaning under their feet. Liora felt the heat blistering her skin, smoke burning her lungs. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. They burst into the courtyard and kept going until they were clear of the building. Ronan set Kieran down gently, checking him over with hands that shook. "I'm okay," Kieran gasped. "I'm okay, Father." Liora bent over, hands on her knees, coughing hard enough to taste blood. Mara appeared beside them, face grim. "The fire's contained. We'll lose the eastern wing, but the rest is secure." "How did it start?" "Don't know yet, but Ronan—" She hesitated. "The lock on Kieran's door, someone barred it from the outside." The words hung in the air like poison. This wasn't an accident. This was attempted murder. Ronan's expression went blank. The kind of blank that came before violence. "Find out who. I want names. I want them now." "Already on it." Mara glanced at Liora. "You good?" Liora nodded, not trusting her voice. "Good. Because we've got another problem." Mara's jaw tightened. "Marcus is missing. He was supposed to be coordinating the response teams, but no one's seen him since the fire started." Ronan went very still. "Show me his quarters." They found Marcus's room empty, stripped, everything personal gone, like he'd never been there at all. And on the desk, written in ash, "The old ways were stronger." Liora stared at the message, her mind working through implications she didn't want to face. "He's the one who told you about the hostages." "Yeah." "He sent you out there, away from Kieran." "Yeah." "And the fire starts the second you're gone." She looked at Ronan. "This wasn't rogues. This was inside." "I know." The words were quiet, resigned, like he'd suspected this all along but hadn't wanted to believe it. "Marcus has been on my council for 15 years, Ronan said, staring at the message. "Helped me rebuild after my father died. Trained half the wolves currently in this pack." His hands curled into fists. "And he just tried to murder my son." "Why?" "Because he thinks I'm weak." Ronan's voice was flat. "Because I changed things. Let Omegas serve in positions of authority. Banned challenge to death matches. Prioritize strategy over brute force." He turned to Mara. "How many others think like him?" Mara's silence was answer enough. "Gather the council. Everyone who's left. I want a full accounting of who's where." Ronan headed for the door. "And double the guard on Kieran. No one gets near him without my direct approval." "What about you?" "I'm going to find Marcus." His smile was sharp as broken glass. And then I'm going to make an example. Oh, the council meeting was a bloodbath. Not literally, though Liora got the sense it was a near thing. Ronan had called every ranking member of the pack into the Great Hall, and the tension was thick enough to choke on. Liora stood in the back, trying to be invisible again, but Ronan had specifically ordered her there. "You helped save Kieran," he'd said. "You have a right to hear this." Now, watching 12 wolves argue over loyalty and tradition and what it meant to be pack, she wasn't sure she wanted that right. "Marcus was a traitor," Ronan said, voice cutting through the noise. "He orchestrated an attack on my son, on this pack. Anyone who defends that is free to leave right now." No one moved. "But," a gray-haired woman spoke up, one of the elders Liora had seen around but never talked to, "we cannot ignore that Marcus represented a significant portion of this pack. Wolves who believe we've strayed too far from our roots." "Our roots included killing Omegas for sport," Ronan shot back, "executing anyone who challenged the Alpha, regardless of whether they were right, living like animals instead of building something better." He leaned forward. "If that's what you want to go back to, say it now." "It's not about going back," another council member said, younger, aggressive. "It's about maintaining strength, discipline, order. You've let outsiders into positions they haven't earned." "Like who?" The man's eyes flicked to Liora. "Like the Omega you claimed without consulting us. The one who's been causing division since she arrived." Heat flooded Leora's face, but before she could respond, Ronan was on his feet. "That Omega saved my son's life. Twice. In the past month, she's proven herself more loyal than wolves who've been here for years." His gaze swept the room. "And if anyone has a problem with that, you're welcome to challenge me for it." The aggressive council member paled. "Alpha, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." Ronan sat back down, calm again, controlled. "Here's what's going to happen. We're going to find Marcus and anyone who helped him. They will be tried under pack law, and if they're found guilty, they will be exiled. Not killed, exiled." He paused. "Because we are better than the old ways, and I will burn this pack to the ground before I let it slide backward." The meeting dissolved into arguments after that, wolves splitting into factions, voices rising until Mara finally ended it by threatening to throw everyone out bodily. Liora slipped out during the chaos, needing air, needing space, needing to think. She found Kieran in his room, newly relocated to the western wing, guards posted outside. He was sitting on his bed, hands folded in his lap, face turned toward the window he couldn't see out of. "You okay?" Liora asked from the doorway. He jumped, then relaxed when he recognized her voice. "I heard you helped Father find me." "Yeah. Thank you." "Stop thanking me. We're pack, remember?" She stepped inside, closing the door. "You knew, didn't you, that someone wanted you dead?" Kieran's silence was confirmation. Liora sat beside him. "How long?" "A few months? Little things at first. Someone moving furniture so I'd trip. Telling me wrong directions. I thought maybe I was just in the way." He swallowed hard. "Then the accidents got worse. The cliff wasn't the first time someone led me somewhere dangerous. It was just the first time Father found out about it." Rage burned through Leora's chest. "Did you tell him?" "What was I supposed to say? That I think people in our own pack want me dead because I'm blind?" Kieran's voice cracked. "He already worries. Already pushes himself trying to make me stronger, trying to prove I can be alpha someday. I didn't want to give him another reason to think I was weak." "You're not weak." "Then why do they keep trying to kill me?" The question hung between them, brutal in its honesty. Liora didn't have a good answer, because the truth was ugly. Some wolves saw weakness as something to eliminate, not protect. Saw Kieran as a threat to the pack's future, a liability that would get people killed. And they weren't entirely wrong. A blind alpha would face challenges no other leader would need to be twice as strong, twice as smart, twice as ruthless just to survive. And if he couldn't be those things— "They're afraid," Liora said finally. "Of me? Of what you represent, change. A future that doesn't look like the past." She looked at him. "Your father's trying to build something different, something better. But change is terrifying for people who've only ever known one way to live, so they fight it, and you're an easy target." "So what do I do?" You survive. Liora stood. You get stronger, smarter. You prove them wrong. And you do it because they don't think you can. Kieran was quiet for a long moment. Then, will you really help me? Like you promised? Yeah, I will. Good. He smiled, small but genuine. Because I have an idea. About Marcus. That got her attention. What kind of idea? I've been listening to everything people say when they think I can't hear or don't matter. And I heard something yesterday, before the fire. He turned toward her. Marcus was talking to someone in the storage rooms. I couldn't hear the other person clearly, but Marcus said something about, when the smoke clears, we'll have our pack back. Leora's pulse kicked up. He was planning this. For weeks, probably, maybe longer. Kieran's jaw tightened. And he's not working alone. There were at least 3 other voices I recognized. People on the council. Have you told your father? I tried. He said I must have misheard, that I was confused. Pain flickered across Kieran's face. He didn't believe me. Because why would he? A 7-year-old blind boy making accusations against trusted council members based on overheard conversations. It sounded like paranoia. Like a child looking for threats that weren't there. Except they were there. Tell me the names, Liora said quietly. Everyone you recognized. Kieran listed them. 3 council members, 2 senior guards, and one name that made Leora's blood run cold. Sarah, the girl she'd fought on her first day. The one who'd grudgingly started treating her like maybe she wasn't completely useless. You're sure? I know her voice. She was arguing with Marcus. Said killing Kieran was too far, that there were other ways. Kieran's hands twisted together. But she didn't stop it. She knew, and she didn't stop it. Leora's mind raced. This was bigger than Marcus going rogue. This was organized, a conspiracy that ran deep into the pack's leadership. And if she told Ronan, he'd demand proof, evidence, things a blind 7-year-old couldn't provide. But she could. I need you to do something for me, Liora said, and it's going to be dangerous. Kieran sat up straighter. What? I need you to bait them. The plan was insane. Liora knew it was insane, but it was also the only way to draw out the conspirators and get proof Ronan couldn't ignore. She laid it out for Kieran. He would spread word that he'd overheard something important the night of the fire. Something about Marcus's location. He'd make sure the right people heard him, people who'd report back to whoever was running things now that Marcus was gone. Then, when they came for him, Liora would be waiting. They won't kill me in the fortress, Kieran reasoned. Too many witnesses. They'll try to get me outside, somewhere isolated. And that's where I'll follow. What if they catch you? They won't. Liora hoped she sounded more confident than she felt. I've spent 6 years not being caught. I know how to be invisible. But if they do, then you run. You get to your father and you tell him everything. Promise me. Kieran hesitated, then nodded. I promise. They set it in motion the next morning. Kieran made sure to mention, loudly, in the dining hall, that he'd heard something the night of the fire, that he knew where Marcus was hiding. He made it sound accidental, like he didn't realize people were listening. But they were. Liora watched from across the room as Sarah's expression shifted, watched her lean over to whisper something to the wolf beside her, watched the information spread like poison through the pack. By midday, the trap was set. By evening, Sarah approached Kieran. Hey, she said, voice casual. I heard you talking about Marcus earlier. Kieran turned toward her voice, cautious. Yeah? If you know where he is, you should tell Alpha Ronan. I tried. He said I was confused again, that I probably misheard. Sarah was quiet for a moment. What if I believed you? Would you tell me? Why would you help? Because Marcus betrayed all of us. If you really know where he is, she crouched down, voice dropping. I could check it out, quietly, without making a big deal. If you're right, I bring proof to Ronan and he has to listen. It was a good lie. Reasonable. The kind of thing that would make sense to a desperate kid who just wanted to be believed. Kieran sold it perfectly. You'd really do that? Yeah, I would. Okay. He leaned in, whispering coordinates that would lead to an abandoned den 2 miles north of the settlement. But you have to go alone. If Marcus sees a group coming, he'll run. Smart. Sarah stood. I'll check it out tonight. And Kieran, don't tell anyone else. If this gets back to the wrong people, it'll blow up before we can do anything. I won't. I promise. Sarah left, and Kieran stayed perfectly still until her footsteps faded. Then he turned his head slightly, not enough to be obvious, but enough that Liora, watching from the shadows, knew he was asking if she was ready. She was. That. Liora followed Sarah into the forest at dusk, staying downwind, moving like a ghost through the underbrush. Sarah was good, checked her surroundings, doubled back twice to make sure she wasn't being followed. But Liora was better. She'd learned to track in these woods before Sarah was born, had survived when survival meant being invisible even to the predators hunting her. This was her element. Sarah reached the coordinates Kieran had given and paused, scenting the air. The den was there, empty, like Liora knew it would be. No Marcus, no conspirators, just bait. Sarah pulled out a radio. He's not here. The kid was wrong. Static, then a voice Liora didn't recognize. Or he lied. We need to reconsider the approach. What approach? We already tried killing him once. Ronan's got him locked down now. Then we go through the Omega. Liora's breath caught. What? Sarah sounded uncertain now. What does she have to do with Ronan trusts her, uses her to get to Kieran? If we take her, make it look like she ran, Ronan loses his grip. The council will push for a return to traditional leadership. We can work with that. You want to frame her? I want her gone, one way or another. The voice paused. Marcus made mistakes, got emotional. We won't. This is about the pack's future, Sarah. Don't forget that. Sarah was quiet for a long time, then, when? Tomorrow, during the council session. Everyone will be distracted. The radio went silent. Liora backed away carefully, mind racing. She had what she needed. Proof of conspiracy, names, a plan. She just had to get back to Ronan and... A hand clamped over her mouth. She twisted, slamming her elbow back, but whoever grabbed her was ready. They took the hit and held on, dragging her backward into the shadows. Quiet, a voice hissed. Male. Unfamiliar. I'm not going to hurt you. Liora bit down hard on the hand covering her mouth. The grip released with a curse, and she spun, claws out, and stopped. The man facing her was older, 50 maybe, scarred and lean with eyes that reminded her of Ronan's, sharp, calculating. Who are you? She demanded. Someone who's been watching this pack tear itself apart for months. He glanced toward where Sarah had disappeared. Someone who knows you just walked into something a lot bigger than you realize. I realize plenty. Do you? He stepped closer, and Liora saw he was armed, heavily. Because from where I'm standing, you just confirmed that there's a organized group inside Shadow Ridge planning a coup, and they just put you at the center of it. I know. I heard them. Good. Then you also heard that they're planning to move tomorrow. His expression hardened. Which means you have about 12 hours to decide whose side you're on. I'm on Kieran's side. Kieran's a kid. He doesn't have a side. The man studied her. But his father does. And right now, Ronan Kale is the only thing standing between this pack and civil war. So the question is, are you going to help him survive it, or are you going to run? I'm not running. Then prove it. He pulled something from his jacket, a small leather journal, edges worn. This belonged to Marcus, took it from his quarters before Ronan cleaned them out. It's got names, plans, evidence of everyone involved in this mess. Liora took it carefully. Why give this to me? Because I can't get close to Ronan without raising suspicion. But you can. He started backing away. Get that to him, tonight, and tell him his father would be ashamed of what this pack's become. Wait, who are you? But he was already gone, disappearing into the forest like he'd never been there. Liora stood there, journal in hand, heart pounding. Then she ran. She made it back to the fortress, slipped past guards, and went straight to Ronan's office. Didn't knock, just burst in. He was alone, bent over maps, and looked up with an expression that shifted from annoyance to alarm when he saw her face. What happened? I have proof. She threw the journal on his desk. Marcus wasn't working alone. It's half your council, and they're planning to move tomorrow. Ronan picked up the journal, flipping through pages, his expression growing darker with each one. Where did you get this? Someone gave it to me. Said to tell you your father would be ashamed. Ronan's head snapped up. What? I don't know who he was, but he had your eyes, and he knew about the coup. Ronan was on his feet, pacing. That's impossible. The only person who... He stopped. Shit. What? My uncle, Gareth. He was exiled 10 years ago for trying to overthrow my father. I thought he was dead. Ronan ran a hand through his hair. If he's back, if he's here... The window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the room, and 3 wolves burst through, already mid-shift, teeth bared and claws out. Ronan moved on instinct, throwing himself between them and Liora, but there were too many and they were too fast. One slammed into him, driving him into the desk. Another went for Liora. She shifted, her wolf form erupting out just in time to meet the attack. They collided midair, a tangle of fur and teeth, hitting the ground hard enough to crack stone. Liora was outmatched. She knew it. The wolf on top of her was bigger, stronger, trained for this. But she was angry. Angry at being underestimated, at being used, at spending weeks trying to prove herself to people who'd already decided she was worthless. She fought dirty, went for eyes, throat, anything vulnerable. Used her smaller size to slip holds, her teeth to tear through muscle. It wasn't pretty, wasn't honorable, but it worked. The wolf yelped, stumbling back, and Liora pressed the advantage, driving him toward the shattered window until his back hit the frame. One hard shove, and he was gone, falling 3 stories with a scream that cut off abruptly. Liora spun back to help Ronan, and froze. He had 1 wolf pinned, throat in his jaws, but the third had a blade pressed to his spine. One wrong move, and he was dead. Shift, the wolf demanded. Now! Oh, Ronan didn't move. I said shift. Do it, Liora said quietly. Ronan's eyes found hers. She saw him calculating, weighing options. Then he shifted, human again, the wolf's blade pressing against bare skin now. Smart choice, the wolf grinned. Now you're going to come with us, quietly. And if you don't... Liora hit him from behind. She'd shifted mid-leap, human hands grabbing the knife, wolf strength twisting his arm until bone snapped. He screamed, dropping the blade, and Ronan caught it before it hit the ground. The fight was over in seconds. When it was done, 2 wolves lay unconscious, one dead in the courtyard below, and Ronan was staring at Liora like he'd never actually seen her before. You... Alarm screamed through the fortress. Ronan cursed, grabbing his radio. Report! Mara's voice crackled back, tight with panic. East Gate's under attack. At least 20 hostiles. And Ronan, they're not rogues, they're ours. The coup had started. Ronan was moving before the radio static cleared, grabbing weapons, already shouting orders through the comm system. Lock down the western wing. Get Kieran to the safe room. I want every loyal wolf armed and in position. Now! Liora shifted back to human, ignoring her nakedness. Modesty was a luxury they didn't have time for. The journal, we can use it. Not if we're dead. Ronan threw her a shirt and pants from the cabinet behind his desk. Get dressed, fast. She did, fingers fumbling with unfamiliar fastenings. Outside, the sounds of combat were getting closer. Screams, growls, the wet crunch of bodies hitting stone. How many do you think are with them? She asked. Based on what's in that journal, maybe a third of the pack. His jaw tightened. Enough to make this bloody. They hit the stairs at a run, Ronan leading, Liora close behind. The main hall was chaos. Wolves fighting wolves, blood slicking the floors, the smell of violence thick enough to choke on. Mara appeared from the fray, shirt torn, blood streaming from a cut above her eye. Eastgate's holding but barely. They're organized, Ronan. Someone's coordinating them. Where's Kieran? Safe room with 4 guards. I made sure... An explosion rocked the building. They all went down, ears ringing, dust raining from the ceiling. Liora pushed herself up, vision swimming, and saw the western wall had a hole blown through it. Wolves were pouring in through the gap, and at their head, Marcus. He looked different than the grizzled council member she'd seen before. Harder, like he'd shed something that had been holding him back. Ronan Kale! His voice carried over the chaos. Come out and face judgment, or watch your pack burn. Ronan was on his feet, fury radiating off him in waves. You want me? Come and get me. He shifted mid-leap, massive dark wolf slamming into Marcus with enough force to crater the stone floor. They rolled, snapping and tearing, and then they were lost in the mass of bodies. Liora tried to follow, but Mara grabbed her arm. No, you need to get to Kieran. He's in the safe room, which is in the western wing, the wing they just blew a hole into. Mara's eyes were desperate. Those guards are good, but if the traitors get past them, Liora was already running. She took the back stairs, avoiding the main fighting, using every trick she'd learned in 6 years of staying invisible. The fortress was a maze of corridors and rooms, but she'd spent weeks memorizing layouts, exits, places to hide. Now she used all of it. She reached the western wing to find one guard already down, throat torn out. The other 3 had formed a protective triangle around a reinforced door, the safe room, and were holding off 5 attackers. They were losing. Liora didn't think. She shifted and hit the attackers from behind, claws raking across the nearest wolf's spine. He went down screaming, and she was already moving to the next one, using surprise and speed, because she sure as hell couldn't match them for strength. The guards rallied, pushing back, and for a moment it looked like they might actually hold. Then Sarah came around the corner with 6 more wolves. The guard captain saw them and made a decision. He grabbed Liora, human again, and shoved a key into her hand. Get him out. There's a passage behind the safe room that leads to the eastern tunnels. Go. I'm not leaving you. You're not strong enough to help us win this fight. But you can save Kieran. He pushed her toward the door. So do your fucking job and save him. Liora ran. She jammed the key into the lock, wrenched the door open, and dove through as claws scraped stone inches behind her. She slammed it shut, threw the interior bolt, and turned to find Kieran huddled in the corner, small and terrified. Liora? It's me. She crossed to him, grabbing his shoulders. We have to move, right now. Where? Anywhere but here. The door shuddered under an impact that made the frame crack. They had maybe seconds before it gave completely. Liora scanned the room, and there, half hidden behind a weapons rack, was the passage the guard captain mentioned. She pulled Kieran to his feet, guiding him toward it. There are stairs, steep. I'm going to keep one hand on your shoulder. You're going to count them as we go down. Can you do that? Kieran nodded, jaw set with determination that looked too old for his face. They descended into darkness, Kieran counting each step in a whisper, Liora using her free hand to feel along the wall. Behind them, the sound of splintering wood meant the door had finally broken. Faster, Liora urged. They reached the bottom and found themselves in a tunnel that smelled of damp earth and old stone. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. Liora could hear pursuit echoing down the stairs, maybe 30 seconds behind them. Which way? Kieran asked. Good question. Liora closed her eyes, extending her senses. Air movement from the left. That meant an exit. From the right, nothing but stale air, dead end. Left. Stay close. They ran. The tunnel twisted, branching off in directions Liora didn't have time to map. She picked paths at random, trusting instinct, trying to put distance between them and whoever was following. Then Kieran stumbled, crying out as his knee hit stone. Liora caught him before he fell completely. You okay? I can't run anymore. His breathing was ragged, panicked. I'm slowing you down. You should leave me. Not happening. Liora, but I said no. She pulled him into a side passage, small and narrow, the kind of place pursuers might miss if they were moving fast. Listen to me. You remember what I said about being different, not meaning weak? Yes. This is one of those times. You can hear better than I can, right? He nodded. Good. So you're going to be my ears. Tell me when you hear them getting close. Tell me which direction. Can you do that? I think so. Not think. No. Kieran took a shaky breath. I can do it. Good. Because we're not dying in a tunnel. We're surviving this, and then we're going back up there and finishing this fight. Footsteps echoed through the tunnels, getting closer. Kieran's head tilted, listening. 3 of them, maybe 4, coming from the main passage, 20 seconds out. Liora looked around their hiding spot. It was barely big enough for both of them, let alone a fight. If the pursuers found them here, they were dead. Unless... How's your throwing arm? She asked quietly. What? Rocks. Can you throw straight if I tell you where? Understanding dawned on Kieran's face. I've been practicing. Father makes me throw at targets by sound. Perfect. Liora gathered loose stones from the tunnel floor, pressing them into Kieran's hands. When I say throw, you aim for where you hear my voice. Don't hold back. The footsteps were closer now, 10 seconds. Liora moved to the opposite side of the passage, positioning herself where she could see the main tunnel. 3 wolves, just like Kieran said, moving fast but not careful. Confident. Probably thought they were hunting a scared Omega and a blind kid. They were about to learn different. Liora waited until they passed their hiding spot. Then she stepped out into the main passage, directly behind them. Hey! All 3 spun. Now! Liora shouted, diving left. Kieran threw. The first rock caught the lead wolf square in the temple. He went down hard, unconscious before he hit the ground. The second wolf took a stone to the throat and staggered, choking. The third was faster. He dodged and lunged toward Kieran's voice. Liora hit him mid-leap, shifting as she moved, wolf form crashing into his. They slammed into the tunnel wall, and she went for his throat without hesitation. It was over in seconds. Liora shifted back, breathing hard, checking the downed wolves to make sure they stayed down. Then she turned to Kieran. He was shaking, but his chin was up, hands still clenched around rocks. Did I hit them? He asked. 2 out of 3. That's better than most trained warriors. She touched his shoulder. You did good. Are they dead? 2 are unconscious. 1 is. No point lying about it. You okay with that? Kieran was quiet for a long moment. They were trying to kill us. Yeah. Then I'm okay with it. Liora helped him to his feet. Come on. We need to keep moving. They continued through the tunnels, Kieran's hearing guiding them away from pursuit until finally they emerged into a ravine outside the fortress walls. The night air hit them like a slap, cold and clean after the musty darkness. Above them, Liora could see the fortress burning in places, hear the sounds of ongoing battle. We have to go back, Kieran said. Father's still in there. I know, but we need leverage first. Liora pulled out the journal she'd somehow managed to keep through everything. This has names, evidence. If we can get it to wolves who are still loyal. There's a signal point, Kieran interrupted, on the eastern ridge. Father set it up in case of emergencies. If we light the fire there, it calls in allied packs from the surrounding territories. How far? Maybe a mile? Liora looked at the fortress, at the smoke rising into the night sky, and made a decision. Let's run. They moved through the forest, Kieran keeping pace better than Liora expected. The kid had been training, she realized, learning to navigate by sound and scent, building stamina, preparing for exactly this kind of situation, even if he didn't know it at the time. They reached the signal point, a stone platform with an iron brazier, and Liora scrambled to light it. Her hands were shaking, adrenaline finally catching up with her. The fire caught, flames leaping high into the night. How long until help arrives? Liora asked. Depends on who sees it. Could be 20 minutes. Could be an hour. We don't have an hour. I know. Liora looked back toward the fortress, mind racing. They'd gotten Kieran out. They had the journal. They'd called for backup. But Ronan was still in there, fighting wolves he'd trusted, leading a pack that was tearing itself apart. And she'd promised herself she wouldn't be invisible anymore. I'm going back, she said. What? No, you stay here. When the allied packs arrive, show them the journal. Tell them what happened. She gripped his shoulders. Can you do that? Liora, you'll die. Maybe. She smiled, even though he couldn't see it. But I'm tired of running, and I made a promise to help you, to be pack. I can't do that from out here. Father will kill me if you die. Then I guess I better not die. She was halfway down the slope when Kieran called out, Liora! She stopped, looked back. You're the bravest person I know, he said quietly. My father's lucky you chose us. Something in Liora's chest cracked open. I'm the lucky one, kid. Then she ran toward the burning fortress and the battle that would decide everything. She entered through the eastern tunnel, the one she and Kieran had used to escape. The sounds of fighting were different now. Fewer wolves, but the combat was more desperate, more vicious. She followed the noise upward, emerging into the main hall to find the battle had condensed into a brutal stalemate. Ronan's loyalists held the center, backs to the Great Hall, while Marcus's forces surrounded them on three sides. And in the middle of it all, Ronan and Marcus circled each other, both in human form now, both bleeding from a dozen wounds. This didn't have to be a war, Ronan was saying, voice ragged. You could have come to me, talked. We could have found a solution. The only solution is you stepping down. Marcus's lip curled. You're weak, Ronan. You let sentiment cloud judgment. You claim strays and elevate omegas and pretend we're something we're not. We're wolves, not monsters. Same thing. Marcus lunged. They collided in a flurry of strikes too fast for Liora to follow. Both were trained. Both knew each other's tells. Both were fighting with the desperation of wolves who knew only one of them was walking away. Ronan got the upper hand, slamming Marcus into the ground hard enough to crack stone. His hand went to Marcus's throat, claws extending, and Sarah hit him from the side. Ronan went down, momentum lost, and suddenly Marcus's wolves were surging forward, overwhelming the defensive line. Liora watched Ronan try to rise, blood streaming from a new wound in his side. Watched Marcus stand over him, victorious. Watched the pack that Ronan had tried so hard to build better start to crumble. And she made a choice. She stepped out of the shadows and into the center of the hall, human and unarmed, and absolutely not backing down. Stop. Her voice wasn't loud. Didn't carry the authority of an alpha or the power of a dominant wolf. But it cut through the chaos anyway. Everyone turned to look at her, this Omega who'd been with the pack less than 2 months, who had no rank, no history, no right to speak. Marcus laughed. The stray wants to negotiate? How adorable. I don't want to negotiate. Liora held up the journal, making sure everyone could see it. I want to show you what you're really fighting for. She has Marcus's journal, someone muttered. Impossible. That was in my quarters. Your uncle gave it to me, Liora said, watching Marcus's face go pale. Gareth, the one you thought was dead. He's been watching you, watching all of you. She opened the journal, started reading names. Sarah Thornwood, Jax Renner, council members Aldrich and Thorne, guards Ryder and Kellen. With each name, someone in Marcus's group flinched. You all knew, Liora continued. You knew Marcus was planning to kill Kieran, a 7-year-old boy, and you did nothing. We were trying to save the pack. Sarah started. By murdering a child? Leora's voice cracked like a whip. By betraying wolves you fought beside for years? By burning down the home Ronan built because you're too scared to adapt? We're not scared, Marcus snarled. We're protecting tradition. Tradition is just another word for we've always done it this way. Liora moved closer, and to her shock, Marcus actually took a step back. And maybe that worked when the world was simple, when might made right and weakness meant death. But it doesn't work anymore, because the world changed, and Ronan was smart enough to change with it. She looked around the hall, making eye contact with as many wolves as she could. I was alone for 6 years, no pack, no protection, nothing but my wits and my will to survive. And you know what I learned out there? She paused. That strength isn't just about who can fight the hardest or kill the fastest. It's about who adapts, who survives when everything goes wrong, who builds instead of destroys. Pretty speech, Marcus said. But it doesn't change anything, doesn't it? Liora gestured to his forces. Look at them. Really look. Half your wolves are bleeding. Your plan failed. Kieran's alive. Allied packs are on their way. I lit the signal fire 20 minutes ago. That caused a stir. Wolves on both sides started glancing toward the exits, reconsidering their positions. You can keep fighting, Liora said. Kill each other until there's nothing left. Or you can end this, now, before more wolves die for a cause you know is wrong. Marcus's hand twitched toward a weapon. You think they'll follow you? An Omega nobody? I don't need them to follow me. Leora's smile was sharp. I just need them to remember who they really are, not the monsters you want them to be, but the wolves Ronan believed they could become. Silence fell across the hall. Then slowly, one of Marcus's wolves lowered his weapon, then another. Marcus saw it happening, saw his forces crumbling, and his face twisted with rage. "You're all cowards! We were winning!" "No," Mara said, stepping forward from Ronan's side, bloodied but unbowed. "You were destroying. There's a difference." Marcus looked around wildly, seeing his support evaporating. He grabbed Sarah, hauling her in front of him like a shield. "This isn't over. We can still—" Sarah twisted out of his grip and punched him in the face. Marcus went down hard, and suddenly his remaining loyalists were surrendering, dropping weapons, stepping back with hands raised. It was over. Liora crossed to where Ronan was trying to stand, offering her shoulder for support. He took it, leaning heavier than she expected. "You're supposed to be with Kieran," he said. "He's safe, waiting for the allied packs." She looked at him. "You're bleeding pretty bad." "I've had worse." His eyes searched hers. "You came back." "Yeah." "Why?" "Because I'm Pack, and Pack doesn't leave each other behind." Something shifted in Ronan's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "That speech," he said quietly, "about strength and adaptation. Did you mean it?" "Every word." "Good." He straightened, finding his own balance again despite the wounds. "Because I'm going to need someone who believes that to help rebuild after tonight." Before Liora could ask what he meant, the sound of approaching wolves echoed through the fortress. The allied packs, responding to the signal, and at their head, flanked by guards, was Kieran. The boy's face was streaked with tears, but he was walking straight, head high, like he knew exactly where his father would be. Ronan met him halfway, dropping to one knee so they were eye level. "You okay?" "I'm okay." Kieran's hands found his father's face, checking for injuries by touch. "Liora kept me safe, and I helped. I threw rocks and hit 2 of them, and—" "I know. She told me." Ronan pulled him into a hug, and for a moment the unshakable Alpha was just a father holding his son. "You did so good, Kieran. So good." Liora started to back away, give them space, but Kieran's voice stopped her. "Don't go." She turned back. Kieran was looking in her direction, reaching out one hand. "You're part of this too." And somehow, impossibly, she found herself pulled into the embrace, Ronan's arm around her shoulders, Kieran between them, the 3 of them standing in the center of a ruined hall surrounded by wolves who'd almost destroyed everything, but hadn't. Because sometimes, Liora thought, survival wasn't about being the strongest or the fastest or the most dominant. Sometimes it was about being stubborn enough to stay, smart enough to adapt, and brave enough to believe that broken things could be rebuilt. Mara cleared her throat. "Alpha? We should secure the prisoners and tend to the wounded." Ronan pulled back, becoming the leader again. "Do it." "And Mara, the wolves who surrendered—" "I know. Trial by council, not execution." "Good." He looked at Marcus, still unconscious on the floor. "That one especially. I want answers before judgment." The hall emptied slowly, wolves carrying wounded, securing prisoners, beginning the long work of cleaning up the damage. Liora stood in the center of it all, exhausted down to her bones, and realized she was smiling. She'd done it, actually done it, survived her first pack war, saved Kieran, helped turn the tide of a battle she had no business being part of. And most importantly, she'd proven, to the pack and to herself, that invisible didn't have to mean powerless. Ronan approached her one more time as the last of the wolves filtered out. "There's going to be a lot of work ahead. Rebuilding trust, reshaping the council, figuring out how to move forward. I know. I want you to be part of that. Officially." He paused. "Not as a claimed Omega, as a full pack member with a voice in how we govern." Liora stared at him. "Are you serious?" "You just talked down half a rebellion with nothing but words and conviction. You helped my son become someone I barely recognize in the best way. And you came back when any sensible wolf would have run." His smile was tired but genuine. "Yeah, I'm serious. The council will fight you on that." "Let them. We'll rebuild the council too if we have to." Ronan offered his hand. "What do you say, Liora Vance? Ready to help build something better?" She looked at his hand, at the ruined hall that would have to be repaired, at the pack that would have to be healed, at the massive, impossible work ahead of them. And she took his hand. "Yeah," she said. "I'm ready." The work started before dawn. Liora woke to the sound of hammers on stone, voices calling orders, the smell of fresh timber mixing with smoke residue. She'd slept maybe 3 hours in a corner of the great hall, too exhausted to make it back to her room, and her body was screaming protest from a dozen injuries she barely remembered getting. But the pack was rebuilding, and she'd promised to help. She dragged herself upright, wincing, and found Mara standing over her with a canteen and something that might have been breakfast. Eat, drink, then get to the council chamber. Mara's face was grim. Trials start in an hour. Already? Ronan wants this handled before the allied packs leave. Show of strength. Prove we can govern ourselves, she paused. He wants you there. Why? I'm not council. Not yet. Mara's smile was tired. But you will be. Soon as we figure out what the new council even looks like. Liora forced down food that tasted like ash and followed Mara through corridors still stained with last night's blood. Wolves were everywhere, clearing rubble, tending wounded, reinforcing damaged walls. Some nodded to her as she passed. Others looked away. Progress, she supposed. The council chamber had survived mostly intact, though half the seats were empty now. Ronan sat at the head of the table looking like he hadn't slept at all. Kieran was beside him, small but present, like Ronan wanted him to see this. The remaining council members filled out the rest. 4 wolves who'd stayed loyal through everything. Not enough to govern a pack this size, but it was a start. Marcus was brought in first, wrists bound, flanked by guards. He looked smaller somehow, stripped of authority, just an old wolf who'd bet everything on the wrong horse. Ronan stood. Marcus Thorne, you're charged with conspiracy to commit murder, arson, assault on pack members, and treason against your alpha. How do you answer? Marcus's jaw worked. For a moment, Liora thought he might actually fight this, claim innocence, try to spin some story. Then he just looked tired. Guilty. On all counts. A murmur ran through the chamber. Why? Ronan's voice was quiet, controlled. After 15 years, Marcus. After everything we built together. Why? Because what we built was wrong. Marcus met his eyes. Your father knew it. Knew that letting weakness into the pack would destroy us. He was planning to step down, let someone stronger take over. Then he died, and you... He shook his head. You weren't supposed to be alpha. You were supposed to be a placeholder until someone worthy emerged. And you decided that someone was you? I decided someone had to stop you from running this pack into the ground. Marcus's voice hardened. You claim omegas, abolish death matches, negotiate instead of dominate. You're making us soft, Ronan, and soft wolves don't survive. We survived last night. Barely, and only because... Marcus's eyes flicked to Liora. Only because an omega you claimed less than 2 months ago talked sense into wolves who should have known better. Exactly. Ronan leaned forward. She did what you couldn't, used intelligence and conviction instead of fear and violence. And she proved that your entire philosophy is based on a lie. What lie? That strength only comes through dominance. That the old ways are the only ways. Ronan gestured to the ruined council. Look where that got you, Marcus. Look where that got us. Marcus was silent. The sentence for treason is death, Ronan said. But I'm not my father, and I'm not you. So here's what's going to happen. You're exiled, permanently. You leave Shadow Ridge territory within 24 hours, and you never come back. If I see you again, if you contact anyone in this pack, if you so much as think about interfering with us, then we revisit the death penalty. You're letting me live? I'm giving you the same mercy you refused to give my son. Ronan's voice could have cut steel. Use it wisely. Marcus was led out, shoulders hunched, and Liora realized she felt something unexpected. Pity. He'd believed he was saving the pack, believed Ronan's changes would destroy them, and he'd been so convinced he was right that he'd been willing to kill a child to prove it. That kind of certainty was dangerous, but it was also human. Wolf. Whatever. The trials continued through the morning. Sarah came next, defiant at first, then crumbling when Ronan presented evidence from the journal showing she'd known about the plan to kill Kieran weeks in advance. I didn't want him to die, she said, voice breaking. I told Marcus it was too far, that there were other ways. But you didn't stop it. Ronan's tone was ice. You had weeks to come to me, to warn someone, and you chose loyalty to Marcus over loyalty to pack law. I was scared. So was Kieran. Difference is, he's 7. You're 23. Ronan looked at her with something like disappointment. Exile. Same terms as Marcus. Sarah left without another word. The others who'd actively participated got similar sentences. Exile, or, for those who'd surrendered early, probation with community service rebuilding what they'd helped destroy. By midday, it was done. The chamber emptied except for Ronan, Kieran, Mara, and Liora. Well, Mara said into the silence, that was brutal. Necessary, Ronan corrected. We had to show we can handle internal threats without resorting to mass executions. The allied packs won't like it. They'll say we're being weak. Let them. Ronan stood, stretching muscles that must have been screaming. We're rebuilding this pack the right way. That means justice, not revenge. Kieran tugged on his father's sleeve. Can I go now? I promised Liora we'd work on sound tracking drills this afternoon. Ronan looked at Liora, one eyebrow raised. She shrugged. He throws a mean rock. Figured we should build on that. Fine, but stay in the training yard and take guards. I will. Kieran slipped off his chair, reaching for Leora's hand. Come on. They left the council chamber together, Kieran chattering about techniques he wanted to try. Liora, only half listening, her mind still processing everything that had happened. They'd won. Actually won. But it didn't feel like victory yet. Just exhaustion and the crushing weight of what came next. The training yard was busy, wolves sparring, running drills, trying to rebuild normalcy through routine. A few stopped to watch as Liora set up targets for Kieran, whispering to each other. She ignored them. She was getting good at that. Okay, she said, positioning Kieran. 3 targets. I'm going to tap each one, and you're going to throw at the sound. Ready? Ready. She tapped the first target. A dull thunk of wood on wood. Kieran threw. The rock hit dead center. Tap on the second target. Another throw. Another hit. By the third target, a small crowd had gathered, watching the blind kid nail throws that would have been impressive for someone who could see. Kieran finished and turned toward where he sensed the crowd. Did I miss? Not even close. Liora ruffled his hair. You're getting scary good at this. Good. His smile was fierce. Because next time someone tries to hurt my pack, I want to be able to fight back. The crowd murmured approval, and Liora saw something shift in how they looked at Kieran. Not pity anymore, not concern, respect. They spent another hour drilling before Kieran's energy finally flagged. Liora walked him back to his new quarters, larger, more secure, with guards who'd proven their loyalty, and found Ronan waiting. How'd he do? Ronan asked. Hit every target, kid's a natural. Ronan's expression softened as Kieran disappeared inside to rest. Thank you for working with him. For everything, really. You already thanked me. Not properly. He gestured toward his office. Walk with me? They climbed the stairs in silence, Leora's exhaustion catching up with her now that the adrenaline had finally burned off. Ronan's office had been repaired. New window, fresh furniture, maps updated to show current pack positions. He closed the door and pulled out the journal Marcus had kept. I read through this. All of it. Every name, every plan, every grievance they documented. And Marcus was right about one thing. There is a significant portion of this pack that believes I'm leading them in the wrong direction. Ronan set the journal down. Not enough to stage another coup, probably, but enough that we can't ignore it. So what do you do? I prove them wrong, not through force or intimidation, through results. He looked at her. And that's where you come in. Leora's stomach sank. What are you asking? I want to restructure the council. Make it representative instead of appointed. Give different ranks actual voices in governance. He pulled out a map marked with territories, and I want you to lead the effort. I'm not qualified for that. You talked down a rebellion with nothing but conviction. You saved my son twice. You survived alone for 6 years in a forest that kills most wolves in weeks. Ronan leaned back. You're more qualified than anyone else I've got. The pack will never accept an Omega in a leadership position. They don't have to accept it. They have to deal with it. His smile was sharp. Besides, you won't be alone. Mara will help. Kieran trusts you, and I'll back every decision you make. Liora stared at him. This was insane. Everything about it was insane. But it was also exactly the kind of challenge she'd been looking for without knowing it. What happens if I fail? Then we try something else. Ronan's expression turned serious. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Liora. I'm asking you to try. To help build something that's never been done before. A pack that doesn't just survive through strength, but thrives through adaptability. She thought about the past 2 months. The fighting, the fear, the constant struggle to prove she deserved to exist. And she thought about Kieran, throwing rocks with perfect accuracy despite not being able to see the targets. Different didn't mean weak. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Ronan's relief was visible. Good, because the allied packs leave tomorrow, and I need to present them with a unified front before they go. Tomorrow? That's not enough time. Welcome to leadership. His smile was tired but genuine. It's never enough time. The next 24 hours were brutal. Liora barely slept, working with Mara to draft a new council structure that would give representation to different ranks, while still maintaining alpha authority. They fought over details, compromised on frameworks, and somehow cobbled together something that looked almost functional. The allied packs gathered at dawn in the Great Hall, 5 alphas representing the surrounding territories, all of them watching Shadow Ridge with expressions ranging from concern to outright suspicion. Ronan stood before them, Kieran at his side, projecting strength despite the bandages and exhaustion. Thank you for coming, he said. Your assistance last night prevented catastrophe. Shadow Ridge owes you a debt. The oldest alpha, a gray-haired woman named Vera, crossed her arms. We came because the signal fire indicated an external threat. Instead, we found civil war. Explain. Ronan did. Laid out everything. Marcus's conspiracy, the attempt on Kieran's life, the philosophical divide tearing the pack apart. When he finished, the alphas exchanged looks. You exiled them? Vera asked. The traitors who tried to murder your heir? Yes. That's weak. That's justice. Ronan's voice didn't rise, but the authority in it was absolute. Execution would have been easy. Exile makes them think about what they lost. And it sends a message to anyone else considering betrayal. There's a line between disagreement and treason. Cross it, and you lose everything. Pretty words, another alpha said. But words don't hold territories. Strength does. Then watch how strong we become. Ronan gestured to Liora, who felt her pulse kick up as every eye in the room turned to her. This is Liora Vance. 2 months ago, she was a rogue Omega with no pack. Now she's helping restructure our council to prevent another Marcus from gaining that much unchecked power. Vera's eyebrows rose. An Omega. On your council. Leading the restructure, actually. The silence was deafening. Then Vera laughed, sharp, surprised. You're either brilliant or suicidal, Ronan Kyle. Maybe both, he smiled. But I'm also right. And in 5 years, when Shadow Ridge is stronger than it's ever been, you'll remember this conversation. If you last 5 years, but Vera's expression had shifted to something like approval. Fine, we'll watch. And if your experiment works, maybe we'll try something similar. The other alphas nodded, grudging, and the meeting dissolved into logistics, border agreements, trade terms, protocols for future cooperation. Liora slipped out during the negotiations, needing air, needing space to process the fact that she'd just been presented to 5 alpha leaders as a council member despite having 0 formal training. She found Kieran in the courtyard sitting on a bench, face turned toward the sun. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how everything changed. 2 months ago, I was the blind kid everyone pitied. Now I'm... He trailed off. The heir who survived an assassination attempt and helped stop a coup? Yeah, that. He smiled slightly. It's weird. Welcome to being part of something bigger than yourself. Liora sat beside him. It only gets weirder from here. Oh, they sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of a pack rebuilding itself. Then Kieran asked quietly, Are you going to stay? Really stay, I mean. Not just because Father asked. Yeah, Liora said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. I'm staying. Good. He leaned against her shoulder. Because I like having you around. Something warm and unfamiliar bloomed in Leora's chest. It took her a moment to recognize what it was. Belonging. The weeks that followed were chaos. The new council structure rolled out to mixed reactions. Some wolves embraced it, others resisted. Most just waited to see if it would actually work. Liora found herself mediating disputes, drafting policies, learning to navigate pack politics on the fly. She made mistakes, lots of them, pushed too hard on some reforms and not hard enough on others. Misjudged who would support what. Got into shouting matches with wolves twice her age who didn't think an Omega had any business telling them what to do. But she learned, adapted, got better. And slowly, grudgingly, the pack started to shift. Not overnight, not cleanly, but shift nonetheless. Omegas who'd been relegated to menial tasks found themselves training alongside dominants. Wolves, who'd never had a voice in governance, discovered they could propose ideas and actually be heard. The rigid hierarchy that had defined Shadow Ridge for generations began to blur at the edges. Some wolves hated it, left to join more traditional packs. Others stayed, curious, willing to try. And a few, the ones Liora worked hardest to reach, started to believe that maybe, just maybe, Ronan's vision wasn't insane. Maybe it was necessary. 3 months after the coup, Liora was officially sworn into the council as representative of lower ranks, a position that didn't exist before her and would have been unthinkable in any other pack. Ronan performed the ceremony himself, in front of the entire pack, making it clear this wasn't a token gesture or temporary experiment. This was permanent. "Liora Vance," he said, voice carrying across the assembled wolves. "You came to us invisible, forgotten, with nothing but the clothes on your back and the will to survive. In the months since, you've proven that strength comes in forms we don't always recognize. That courage isn't about who fights the hardest, but who stands up when standing up costs everything." He held out a silver band, the mark of council membership. Liora took it with hands that only shook a little. "Welcome to the council," Ronan said. "Officially this time." The pack didn't cheer. That would have been too much to hope for. But they didn't protest either. And several wolves, including some who'd been openly hostile before, nodded in acknowledgement. It was enough. That night, Liora stood on the eastern wall looking out over the forest that had been her home for 6 years. The moon was full, painting everything in silver light, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something close to peace. "You did good today." She turned to find Ronan leaning against the wall beside her. "I didn't do anything, just stood there while you talked. You accepted the position. That took guts." He was quiet for a moment. "I know it hasn't been easy. The pack doesn't make things simple for anyone, let alone Omegas trying to break centuries of tradition." "No, they don't." Liora smiled slightly. "But I'm stubborn. Comes from 6 years of refusing to die when dying would have been easier." Ronan laughed, genuine, surprised. "I'm starting to see that." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the night. Then Ronan said, "I never thanked you, not really, for saving Kieran that first day. If you hadn't been there, but I was. And he's fine. Stop torturing yourself with what-ifs. He's more than fine. He's thriving, training harder than any kid his age should, learning to fight in ways that play to his strengths instead of trying to compensate for his blindness." Ronan's expression softened. "That's because of you. Because you saw him as capable instead of broken. He was always capable. He just needed someone to believe it. So did you." The words hung between them, gentle and true. Liora had spent so long trying to be invisible, to take up no space, to need nothing from anyone. And somehow, in trying to help Kieran, she'd found herself, found a place, found pack. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now?" Ronan turned to look at her, and in the moonlight his expression was open in a way she'd never seen. "Now we keep building. Keep proving that different doesn't mean weak. Keep showing wolves like Marcus that there's another way. And if we fail, then we fail trying something worth failing for." He smiled. "But I don't think we will. Not with wolves like you on the council." Liora felt heat rise to her face and looked away, focusing on the forest. In the distance, a wolf howled. Then another, then a dozen more, pack song rising into the night sky. And for the first time, Liora added her voice to theirs. Not invisible anymore, not alone, just one wolf among many, singing a future into existence. 6 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Shadow Ridge had gone from a pack on the verge of civil war to something that drew curious observers from territories across the region. Wolves came to see the council, where Omegas had voices, where disputes were resolved through dialogue before violence, where the Alpha's son trained openly despite his disability, respected for his skill instead of pitied for his weakness. Not everyone approved. Traditional packs called them soft, predicted their collapse, waited for the experiment to fail. But it didn't fail. It grew. New wolves joined, rogues and outcasts, Omegas fleeing abusive packs, anyone who'd been told they were too weak or too different to belong. They came cautiously at first, waiting to see if Shadow Ridge's reputation was real or just propaganda. And they stayed, because it was real. Liora watched it happen from her council seat, still sometimes shocked that she was actually sitting there. She'd earned it, pushed through opposition, proved herself over and over, but part of her kept waiting for someone to tell her it was a mistake. No one did. Instead, wolves started coming to her with problems, asking her opinion, treating her like she actually knew what she was doing. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. On a spring morning, exactly 7 months after she'd first crossed into Alpha territory, Liora found herself standing in the Great Hall preparing for another council session when Kieran burst in. "Liora, Father needs you in the training yard." "What happened?" "Just come." She followed him outside to find Ronan standing in the center of a crowd, holding something wrapped in cloth. "There you are," he said when he saw her. "I was starting to think you'd skip out on this." "Skip out on what?" Ronan unwrapped the cloth, revealing a weapon, not a standard pack blade, but something custom. Shorter, balanced differently, designed for speed over power. "This is yours. Commissioned it from the packsmith 3 months ago." He held it out. "Every council member carries a blade marked with their position. You're no different." Liora took it carefully. The handle fit her grip perfectly, the weight distributed exactly right for her build. Along the blade, etched in silver, were words in the old tongue. "What does it say?" she asked. "Invisible no more." Ronan's smile was warm, seemed appropriate. The crowd around them, wolves from every rank, every faction, erupted in approval. Not cheering exactly, but acknowledging, accepting. Liora looked at the blade, at Ronan, at Kieran grinning beside his father, at the pack that had somehow become hers. And she realized something. She'd spent 6 years surviving, 2 months fighting for a place to belong, 7 months proving she deserved to stay. But this? Standing here with a weapon marked with her title, surrounded by wolves who saw her as one of them. This was what it meant to actually live. "Thank you," she said quietly. Ronan just nodded. "You earned it." That evening, Liora returned to the eastern wall, the same spot where she and Ronan had stood months earlier, talking about futures and failures and what it meant to build something new. But this time, she wasn't alone. Kieran joined her, taller now, more confident in his movements. Mara stopped by with updates on border patrols. A few younger wolves, ones who'd joined recently, asked questions about council procedures and how disputes got resolved. Liora answered them all, comfortable in a way she never thought she'd be. When the sun finally set and the others drifted away, she stood alone again, looking out at the forest. Somewhere out there, Marcus and the other exiles were building new lives. Some probably still believed Ronan was destroying Shadow Ridge. Some probably still thought Omegas didn't belong in positions of power. They were wrong. But proving them wrong hadn't been about force or domination. It had been about showing up. Every day. Doing the work. Refusing to disappear. And slowly, impossibly, changing everything. Footsteps approached from behind. She didn't need to turn to know it was Ronan. "Thought I'd find you here," he said. "I like the view." "Yeah, me too." He stood beside her, and for a moment they just existed in comfortable silence. Then, "I've been thinking about succession planning." Leora's eyebrows rose. "You're not that old." "No, but Kieran is 7. If I died tomorrow, the pack would tear itself apart fighting over who raises him and how." Ronan glanced at her. I need someone I trust to be his guardian if something happens to me. Someone who sees him as capable instead of helpless. You're asking me. I'm asking you. Leora's breath caught. This wasn't a council position or a ceremonial role. This was Ronan trusting her with the most important thing in his life. What about Mara? She's been with you longer. Mara's a warrior, an incredible one. But Kieran doesn't need someone who will turn him into a fighter. Ronan's eyes were steady. He needs someone who will help him become the kind of leader who changes the game entirely. Someone like you. The weight of it settled over her. Responsibility and trust, and the terrifying possibility of failing the kid who'd become something like family. But also the knowledge that Ronan believed she could do it, that she'd proven herself enough for him to trust her with everything. Okay, she said. Yes. If something happens to you, which it won't, I'll look after Kieran. Thank you. Ronan's relief was visible. Now I can focus on not dying without worrying about what comes after. They stood together as stars emerged, two wolves who'd found an unlikely partnership built on mutual respect and a shared vision of what their pack could become. Liora thought about the girl who'd saved a blind kid from a cliff 7 months ago. That girl had been invisible, powerless, convinced her only value was in taking up no space. But she'd made a choice, a single, bold choice to step forward instead of hiding. And it had changed everything. Not because she was special or gifted or destined for greatness, but because she'd refused to accept that invisible meant powerless. Because she'd been stubborn enough to stay when leaving would have been easier. Because she'd believed, even when no one else did, that she deserved to exist. And in the end, that belief had been enough. Ronan headed back inside eventually, leaving Liora alone with the night in her thoughts. She pulled out the blade he'd given her, running her thumb along the words etched into steel. Invisible no more. A promise. A challenge. A truth she'd fought for and earned. The forest stretched out before her, wild and dangerous and beautiful. And Liora smiled, because she was all those things too. And she wasn't hiding anymore. The first winter after the coup tested everything they'd built. Snow came early that year, heavy and relentless, burying the forest under 3 feet of white silence. Hunting became brutal. Food stores ran low. Wolves who'd been willing to try Ronan's new way started grumbling again, saying the old methods would have kept them better prepared. Liora sat through council meetings where the complaints grew sharper, the accusations more pointed. Marcus had been gone for 8 months, but his philosophy lingered like a ghost. We should have stockpiled more, one council member argued, sent hunting parties deeper into neutral territory before the freeze. That would have violated treaties with the allied packs, Liora countered, and we can't build trust while breaking agreements. Trust doesn't fill empty bellies. It was an argument they'd had 6 different ways already, and Liora was exhausted of it. But she kept her voice level, kept presenting solutions instead of just defending positions. Then we negotiate. Ask the allied packs for temporary hunting rights in exchange for something they need, labor, craftsmanship, whatever we can offer. She pulled out maps she'd been working on. We have skilled metalworkers, tanners, builders. Other packs don't. We trade expertise for resources. The council member scoffed. Barter like common merchants? Survive like smart wolves, Ronan interjected. Leora's right. We make this work through cooperation, not isolation. Put together a list of what we can offer and who needs it most. We send envoys by week's end. The grumbling continued, but the motion passed. After the meeting, Liora found Kieran in the library, a new addition to the fortress, filled with tactical manuals, histories, and scrolls Ronan had been collecting to educate his son beyond just physical training. How was council? Kieran asked without looking up from the text he was studying, fingers tracing raised letters on a page designed for the blind. Same as always. People afraid of change, pretending they're just being practical. Liora collapsed into a chair. Sometimes I wonder if we're actually making progress or just exhausting ourselves for nothing. You're making progress. Kieran closed his book. I can hear it in how people talk. 3 months ago, half the pack called you the Omega like it was an insult. Now they call you by name. That's something. It's not enough. Nothing's ever enough when you're trying to change the world. He smiled, and when had he gotten so wise? But you keep doing it anyway. That's what makes you different. Liora studied him. 9 years old now, tall for his age, growing into someone who commanded respect without demanding it. He still couldn't see, would never see, but he navigated the fortress better than wolves who'd lived there for decades. New voices, footsteps, the subtle shifts in air pressure that meant someone was approaching. "Your father asked me to be your guardian," she said quietly. "If anything happens to him." Kieran went still. "What did you say?" "I said yes." "Good." His smile turned fierce. "Because you're the only one who doesn't treat me like I'm made of glass. You're not glass, you're stone. Stubborn, solid stone that refuses to break no matter how hard they hit it." She reached over and messed up his hair. "Takes one to know one." They sat together in comfortable silence until Mara burst in, face flushed from running. "We have a situation. Rogues at the northern border, but they're not attacking. They're asking for sanctuary." Liora was on her feet immediately. "How many?" 12. Mostly Omegas and juveniles. They say they're fleeing a pack that's gone wrong. The three of them found Ronan already at the northern gate, standing face to face with a group of wolves who looked half-starved and completely terrified. The leader, a woman maybe 30, with scars crossing her face and arms cradled protectively around two small children, stepped forward when she saw Ronan. "Alpha Kyle, we've heard stories about Shadow Ridge, about how you let Omegas serve on council, about how you don't kill wolves for being weak." Her voice cracked. "Please, we need help. Our pack." "The Alpha went mad. Started executing anyone who questioned him. We barely escaped." Ronan studied them with the careful assessment of someone who'd been burned before. "What pack?" "Iron Ridge, 20 miles southeast." Liora saw Ronan's expression darken. Iron Ridge was a traditional pack, old-school dominance hierarchy, ruled by an alpha named Gareth. "Wait, Gareth?" Liora asked sharply. "Your Uncle Gareth?" The woman's eyes widened. "You know him?" "He's supposed to be dead," Ronan said flatly. "Exiled 10 years ago. How long has he been running Iron Ridge?" 6 months. He challenged their alpha and killed him, said he was building a pack the right way. No weakness, no mercy." The woman's hands tightened on her children. "He found out some of us were planning to leave, started making examples. We ran before he could—" She couldn't finish. Ronan and Liora exchanged looks. Gareth hadn't just survived exile. He'd taken over another pack and was running it exactly how Marcus had wanted to run Shadow Ridge. This was going to get complicated. "Mara," Ronan said quietly, "get them food, water, medical attention. House them in the guest quarters until we figure out what comes next." "You're letting them stay?" one of the gate guards asked, surprised. "They asked for sanctuary. We give it." Ronan's voice carried authority that brooked no argument. "That's who we are now, wolves who help instead of turn away. Anyone have a problem with that?" No one did. As the refugees were led inside, Liora pulled Ronan aside. "Gareth's going to come for them. You know that." "I know. And when he does, we'll have to decide if we're willing to fight another pack to protect a group of strangers." "They're not strangers. They're wolves seeking protection." Ronan's jaw tightened. "And yes, we'll fight if we have to, because that's the pack we're building, one that stands for something beyond just survival. Even if it costs us? Especially then." He looked at her. "You don't believe in this? Say so now. I won't force you to defend a principle you don't share." Liora thought about 6 years alone in the forest, about stumbling onto a blind kid at a cliff edge and making a choice that should have gotten her killed, about every moment since where she'd chosen to stand instead of run. "I believe in it," she said. "I'm just making sure you do too." Ronan's smile was tired but genuine. "Every damn day." They stood together as snow began to fall again, watching the fortress absorb 12 more souls who needed saving. And Liora realized this was what pack really meant. Not blood, not hierarchy, not tradition, but choice. The choice to stand for something bigger than yourself, to protect the vulnerable even when it was inconvenient, to build something worth defending even if defending it cost everything. She'd been invisible for so long, convinced her only value was in taking up no space. But standing here, Council member, guardian designate, wolf who'd changed the rules just by refusing to accept them, she understood something fundamental. Invisibility had never been safety. It had been surrender, and she was done surrendering. Whatever came next, whether it was Gareth's wrath or another internal challenge, or just the daily grind of proving that different didn't mean doomed, she'd face it. Not alone, not invisible, but as part of something that mattered, as part of a pack that had chosen to be better. And that, Liora thought, as she walked back into the fortress beside Ronan, was worth every fight ahead. The snow kept falling, burying the old world under layers of white. But underneath, something new was growing, strong, stubborn, unbreakable, just like the Omega who'd refused to stay invisible.